Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, call La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Makah HaKodash. Of course, those are the true names of the Heavenly Father, in the name of the only begotten Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors goes out to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and the sincere peace and salutations goes out to the elect. And real quick, I wanted to briefly speak on an encounter that we had towards the end of camp. This last past Saturday. A woman had walked up towards the end of the camp, and the Zaquan was speaking, and she had a question. Just overall, what is being taught. What's being taught, what's being preached, and so on and so forth. And granted, me personally, I don't believe this is it's not the first time you've seen us out here. It's not the first time you hearing about the Israelites. I mean, it's 2026, man. You should already know, to a certain degree, with what the doctrine is about. But nonetheless, the question was asked, and Zaquan went into it, briefly, because we were ending camp, and it was a few things that I could, see a few strongholds, if you will, which I'm gonna get that in I believe it's in Second Corinthians. That you always see, or notice, when it comes to the you dealing with these Christians, man. That plantation Christianity has definitely worked a number, on our people. When it comes when the scriptures talk about a deep sleep, Jake is sleep, which just means it's just lack, it's just void of understanding, just not knowing the who, what, where, why, when. And these seducing spirits, aka Christianity, it's an overall doctrine, it's put our people to sleep, and it has put our people to sleep for a very long time. It's one of the main agents, all right, that have been utilized, all right, to captivate the mind, of our people, you know, and put them in this spirit of, God, accepts you as you are, Jesus, loves everybody, all right, and when he comes back, there's going to be this rainbow coalition and him passing out hugs and flowers and things of that nature. Okay, but that is not what the text say. That is not what the word says, and that's why I have this Matthew's 22 and 29 pulled up, and it says, Yahweh Shai answered and said unto them, ye do err, not knowing the scriptures nor the power, okay, of the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. So the majority of them are just, you err not knowing the scriptures, so you don't know. A lot of the things that they're quoting, a lot of the things that that they are saying, it's just, words ultimately that have just been passed. These are just thoughts that have been passed, and ultimately you subscribe to them. Okay, you subscribe to them because this is what you've been taught your whole life, and a lot of our people don't. That's why the scriptures say, blessed is him that readeth, and heareth the words, of the of the prophecies, roughly paraphrasing the book of Revelation. Okay, so it's imperative, that you open up these scriptures and you read, and I will say, coupled with that, all right, which I had this pulled up, Acts the 8th chapter, is being taught. All right, is being taught the correct way, because there's a lot of individuals that call themselves leaders of these different denominations and churches. you know but what the Lord said, if the blind lead the blind, they shall both fall into the ditch. All right, these individuals are wolves in sheep's clothing. Scriptures talk about false prophets and so on and so forth. Okay, because what ultimately, let's stop here. I had a couple. I want to hold this. Damn, I got a couple pulled up. Let's come back to this Acts 8 really quick. To the law. No. Isaiah 8:20, it says, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Okay. So if they're not speaking according to, all right, the holy scriptures and what's written within it, okay, then what the light, all right, or Yahweh Shai ultimately is not, Yahweh Shai is not dealing with them. Okay. If they're not giving you the true understanding, of these scriptures, and there's a lot of different topics within, the scriptures. And I will say I'll just say the one that we spoke on briefly was the topic of salvation, and who, is the gospel for, all right, who is the new covenant, for, who are the Lord's people, who is the Lord dealing with. Okay, does the Lord love everybody? Okay, and these are the common topics that we typically or usually go into, and again, if you go within these scriptures and it doesn't, I don't want to necessarily say resonate, but if you can't see it or grasp the point from a objective mentality versus a subjective, all right, then what? Them strongholds, okay? Them strongholds have really got you. And let me see, let's go back. We're going to come back to that. Let's 2 Corinthians. And I'm going somewhere, and I want to make a point. And I'm going to get an example. I'm going to go to Isaiah, the 11th chapter. And, the strong concordance and going into the outline biblical usage, is very important, that the scriptures tell us, study to show yourself approved, rightly, dividing the word, in truth, roughly paraphrasing. So to study, to read, to go into these things so you can have clarity, so you can have a more of a in-depth understanding, of what, all right, the will, of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is. Because if you don't, you will be out here lost, man. You will be caught up, in these nets, all right, entangled, okay, if you will, in these nets that are set up, all right, or these snares that are set up by the enemy. And ultimately, we know from the highest perspective is really, the Lord, that has done these things, and the only way to be cleared or to be set free, all right, is what, the Lord has to sanction it. But this is 2 Corinthians 2, 10 and 4 says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High to pulling down of strongholds. It says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of the Most High, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach. Okay. So those, the strongholds, man, the strongholds are, these, manifold of different doctrines, okay, or different beliefs that, are spread, really throughout the world. There are a lot of different, beliefs, a lot of different, gods that, these heathen worship and deal with. All right. And more importantly, our people, the bulk of our people subscribe to these, pagan religions, and even when it comes to the holy scriptures, all right, multiple, a lot of different denominations. Here it is, it's all the same book, but all these different beliefs. Okay, so it's what is the word say? Okay, and like I said, these Christians, they don't want to really deal with it, just to be frank, man, just to be real. In the case where, the girl, came up and asked a question, like I said, she wasn't, being disrespectful. Towards the end, she, we closed up. She was still out there. Brother was still talking to her. It may seem one way, it may seem, sincere or, in the moment, but only at the end of the day, only the Lord knows. Okay. But I wanted to get this example, of, rightly dividing the word and truth, and really understanding how to utilize the tools that the Lord has set up, ultimately to give us more, clarity and more understanding, and this the Strong's Concordance, and I have this Isaiah 11 pulled up, all right, and I'm gonna give an example of the word. We're gonna go into the word Gentile. Now, before we do that, I went to Chat GPT, right, and I said in the interlinear concordance, what does outline of biblical usage mean? It says in an interlinear concordance, like those based on the King James Version or Strong's Concordance, okay, which we're about to go into, outline of biblical uses is a short summary explaining how a specific Hebrew or Greek word is used throughout the Bible. It says it is not a definition in the modern dictionary sense. Instead, it shows core meaning, range of meaning, and contextual nuances. Okay, core meaning, the basic idea of the original Hebrew or Greek word. Okay, range of meaning, different ways the word is translated depending on the context. And in contextual nuances, it says how the meaning shifts in various verses. Okay, and this is why it's important to go, to dive into that concordance, especially going into these Hebrew words, man. The apostles always told us, hey, look, you're gonna have to know a little, Latin, a little Greek, you have to know some Hebrew to get the proper understanding of what, all right, the prophet, is saying. In this case, we're going to go to Isaiah the 11th chapter. All right. Now, Isaiah the 11th chapter, this is, ultimately the argument that, the Lord, when he comes back, right, is coming to save everybody. All right. He's coming to save, the doors of grace and mercy. Okay. Or just overall salvation is granted unto the natural born heathen, or natural born Gentile, when that is incorrect. Okay. So one case, okay, Isaiah the 11th chapter, and as a matter of fact, let's see. Right, 11. So a restored remnant, all right, is the heading, well, it's not the heading of this chapter, it's just that section. But let's go. We're gonna start at the Isaiah 11 and 10. It says, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for ensign of the people. Okay, and it says, and to it shall the Gentiles seek, and the rest, and his rest shall be glorious. Okay, so the root of Jesse, who is Jesse, is David's father, correct? And then that root is speaking about who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Okay, his true name is Yahweh Shai, right? And then it says, to it shall the Gentiles seek. Now the Gentiles, what is a Gentile? Remember we just read in Chat GPT, what the outline biblical usage, for the Strong's, concordance, for the interlinear concordance, right? So you go into this and you go to the word Gentile. Okay, it's a H 1471. Okay, Goy, okay, or Goyim, right? Gawayim. It reads, right. So outline biblical uses. Now keep in mind what it said, right? So it gives you 1A and then 1, 2, 3B. So nation people, usually of non-Hebrew people. Right, then 2 of descendants of Abraham, 3 of Israel, okay, of swarm of locusts, it says other animals figuratively, okay, Goyim, and then nations. So it means nations, but what you have to understand how to apply it, when to apply it, and where to apply it when it comes down to the biblical usages. Okay, and in the context of this chapter, okay, when it pertains to salvation, just like in many other locations, okay, when it pertains to salvation, it's speaking about who. Now the rest of the chapter is going to break it down. It says the restored remnant. So from that enzyme, all right, that's going to stand as Yahweh Shai, and the Gentiles that are going to seek are who? And it says 11, and And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcast of Israel. Remember, gathering more context, okay, and understanding who is being spoken about when it pertains to the Gentiles. Because remember, when you go, again, you go here, you look at outline biblical usages, one of them, okay, two of them actually, of descendants of Abraham, and the next one of Israel, okay? Now, in certain circumstances or certain, portions of scriptures, it's speaking about the other nations, okay, and other people. Okay, speaking about the Gentiles, but then there are locations when the Lord is speaking about his people, Israel, okay, and uses the word Gentile. And that's why it's important for you to go, okay, into the, give me one.